also have Abdullah Ahmed Al-Mandis, the president of the WMO, who will join us by video, and Aggie Veras, the director of the UNDP office here in Geneva, will share her thoughts on why and how the goal of 1.5 degrees is reachable. So let's first please welcome Celeste Saulo, Secretary General of the WMO.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everybody. Welcome to our house, the House of Climate. And I'm delighted to be with you all today and convey my good wishes for the World Meteorological Day, which takes place on March 23rd, with the theme At the Front Line of Climate Action. In his message for World Met Day, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, said that the climate crisis is the fight of our lives. Let's unite at the front line of climate action and build a better future together. I fully agree with Mr. Guterres. I would like to welcome Aggie Veras, Director of the Geneva Office of the UN Development Programme, and all our distinguished guests at WMO and around the world. It is a truly special occasion as we join with UNDP to launch a new climate action campaign centered on the weather kids. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to say a big thank you to all the young people, their families, and friends who are supporting the Weather Kids campaign. We hope it will go viral. You may be wondering, what's the link between UNDP Weather Kids campaign and our commemoration of the World Meteorological Day? Let's start by mentioning that development is a core expectation for every person at every country. It links present with future, a future where these weather kids will be adults, deserving a sustainable development, deserving a livable planet. This basic hope is being threatened by climate change and its close connection with inequality. And we, as a global community, need to address this urgently. Climate action and all the work of the national meteorological and hydrological services worldwide are part of our contribution to this call. So here we are, linking our celebration, our present, our future, our commitment to the younger generations, and to climate action. What is climate action from our perspective? It is monitoring the atmosphere, the water, the ice sheets, and communicating this information to support policy and decision-making. It is providing better forecasts and early warnings to protect our communities from hazardous weather. It is increasing our understanding of physical, economical, and societal drivers of impacts of climate change and climate variability. It is coordinating amongst national meteorological and hydrological services in such a way that they can share data and have timely access to forecasts generated by our global centers. It is capacity building at the local level to engage experts, practitioners, educators, communities, and youth. Education is key. We hope that the Weather Kids campaign will bring climate into the classroom and into the homes of millions of people around the world. We hope the Weather Kids will raise awareness of the role of the WMO community in our fight against climate change. I am delighted at the support from national meteorological and hydrological services to this campaign. Climate and weather affect every single aspect of our lives. Weather and climate information fuels economic growth and sustainable development. For instance, renewable energy systems depend on wind, on sunlight or cloud cover, and on water and rain. Understanding their variability and their long-term changes by using meteorological data and climate models is key for managing the energy supply and every single economic activity. When I was a child, a long time ago, the weather forecast would come after the TV or radio news. Now, it is the news. Heat waves, floods, and fires unfortunately make headlines on a daily basis. Climate change is humanity's most urgent challenge. Our new report on the state of the global climate showed that 2023 set new records for every single climate indicator. We need to find a way to convince decision makers of the urgency of cutting greenhouse gases emissions, and that is why we need weather kids as ambassadors for action. Children are our inspiration, our hope, and our responsibility. The lives of future generations are in our hands. Our efforts today are vital to ensure a safer, healthier world where children thrive in harmony with nature. It is therefore fitting that World Meteorological Day highlights the front line of climate action. And it is a call for everybody, adults and children alike. We must all pull in the same direction. I thank you all for your attention, and happy World Meteorological Day.
And here's the video from the WMO president.
Ramadan Kareem. May this Ramadan bring you peace and happiness. I am delighted to address this World Meteorological Day, March 23rd, and the ceremony. As a president of WMO, I send my greeting to all WMO permanent representatives and their meteorological services. This is an opportunity to celebrate the work of the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services as key players in both climate change adaptation and mitigation, as they are indeed on the front line of climate action. The critical infrastructure of WMO network that is used to gather, analyze, and share weather, climate, and environmental data provides the basis for understanding what is happening with the climate now, how it is changed, and how it will continue to change in the future. Climate change is not just an issue in our inbox. WMO has officially confirmed that 2023 is the warmest year on record. Accelerating temperatures demand accelerate action. The United Nations Early Warning for All initiative to provide protection from extreme weather, water, and climate events by the end of 2027 is an proven and effective way to save lives and communities from the impact of climate change. This is an ambitious goal, but it is achievable. To make it a reality, we need cooperation from all global players like UN agencies, public and private partners, in a way that has not been done before. On the 22nd, we celebrate the World Water Day to raise awareness and inspires action to tackle the water crisis brought on by the climate change. I believe that the new climate action campaign launched 21st with UNDP will also motivate us to act now together for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
And next we have Aggie Veras, the UNDP Director.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to WMO for the wonderful introduction. The science behind our climate is absolutely key to see the path necessary for climate action. So that's why we at UNDP are very glad that we have the opportunity to launch our global campaign, The Weather Kids, at the World Meteorological Day in cooperation with WMO. So thank you for your support. This campaign, as you will see, combines the power of scientific information and storytelling to create a climate momentum. We are launching this campaign because we believe in the power of collective action, and that's what we are calling for, as the decisions that we make today will echo through the generations to come. This is why our call for action is based on hope. We need to keep the ambition alive of saving our planet and bringing by prosperity to all, and in this, it's absolutely crucial to educate children about climate change and its impacts in a way that empowers them rather than instill fear. As parents, we do all we can for our children, for the happy and healthy future of our children. We try to give them what's in our power. But it's not just about the toys, the books, the good education, and the loving home that we provide, but also about the very air they breathe, the water they drink, and the future they will inherit from us. So why are we not bringing this in the forefront of our actions? Climate change isn't an abstract or a distant threat. It's happening right now and everywhere. And it's impacting our children's lives in ways that we may not even realize at the moment. So we should not forget that first and foremost, it's our responsibility to give them a safe, healthy, and thriving world to live in. Everything else can follow that. So we at UNDP, we believe that amidst the crisis that lies ahead, there are opportunities, and great opportunities for profound transformation. There is certainly hope, and we can forge a path towards a greener and more resilient future together. We also need to recognize that climate is not a standalone issue. It's inherently linked to human development. We cannot build prosperous societies while leaving behind the most vulnerable among us. We need to achieve a lasting success both with our planet and the people. Our pursuit of development must be guided by the environmental stewardship and social justice. So our call for action today is actually quite simple, both at the level of individual and the collective. Let's be the role models our children and future generations need, the stewards of this planet they deserve, and the catalysts for positive change they can look back to with pride. And at the level of the collective, let's push for the right policies and investments, making it clear that decision makers at the time to act is now. The cost of inaction is too high. We simply cannot wait. And we have everything to succeed: creativity, technology, finance. So let's work together to bring these in the service of the planet and people. And this is why we are bringing all of you here together today, to urge for a commitment and pledge to keep the Paris Agreement alive. Our children are counting on us. So let's rise to this challenge and build a brighter future together for them. Thank you.
Well, thank you to our speakers for all of these insights to get us started. Now, I'm English, so chatting about the weather is second nature to me, but it's a different kind of weather conversation that we're having these days. The weather is the news, with more severe storms and droughts and disasters. So what do our children think about what's happening? And what will their world look like in 2050 when they're adults? Well, that brings us to the launch of Weather Kids, the new UNDP climate campaign, and I'll leave you with this video to tell you all about it.
I'm Kaylee with the very special weather report. From up there to down here, everything is crazy. If we don't listen to scientists, things are going to be even crazier when I grow up. Let's look at the forecast for 2050. Heat waves will affect 94% of children, making playing outside a thing of the past. Extreme droughts will wipe out wheat crops, killing the one food my brother eats, bread. Disasters will cost taxpayers almost $6 trillion. My parents hate taxes. Of course, all of this is caused by a blanket of heat-trapping pollution in the atmosphere that we could just, not put up there. But don't worry, there's still a chance of clear skies. Right now, clean energy systems are moving in from the east to the west, creating tons of cool jobs. And solar prices have dropped lower than oil and gas. Going to the satellite, it looks like a high-pressure system of grown-ups could still move in and protect kids from an avalanche of really bad stuff. Some gusty political winds ahead, but they're no match for the power of Hurricane Felicia. That's my mom. We'll keep you posted as we track if adults stop wasting time and fix this totally solvable problem. Because it's not just a weather report to us, it's our future.
Well, today here in Geneva, we're lucky enough to be joined by one of the kids looking at the future of our weather. Let's welcome Noam Moitié-Bakayoko, and he's part of a network of young forecasters presenting today with the support of partners around the world on a webcast today. Now, Noam is 11 years old and from France, and he'll be speaking in French. Bienvenue, Noam.
Mesdames et messieurs, merci de nous rejoindre pour un bulletin météo très spécial. Je suis Noam, votre présentateur. Du nord au sud et du sud au nord, côté climat, rien ne va. Imaginez-vous ma situation qui sera la mienne quand je serai grand. Sécheresse, feux de forêt, canicule, je continue? Ça fait peur, hein? En plus, ça va tous nous coûter très cher. En 2050, le réchauffement climatique nous coûtera 600 000 milliards de dollars. En fait, tout cela est dû à la pollution qui réchauffe l'atmosphère. L'effet de serre, on s'en passerait bien. Il existe des solutions d'énergie propre. Vous saviez, vous, que l'énergie solaire coûte moins cher que l'essence? Mesdames et messieurs, l'inaction a un coût. Pour vous, ceci n'est peut-être qu'un flash météo. Mais pour nous, il s'agit de notre avenir.
Thanks very much for that, Noam. Wasn't he great? I'd like to say he has a promising career ahead of him. But of course, family support is a big part of climate action, and the contributions that Noam and the other young forecasters are making to Weather Kids today. Now, the future of weather relies heavily on parents making that commitment to change today. So now, for that family perspective, we're very pleased to welcome Noam's mother, Madame Céline Moitié. Bienvenue.
Thank you.
Well, Noam did so well today, Céline, but as a parent, why are climate action and this Weather Forecast Kids campaign so important to you? And what impact are you hoping it will have?
Well, this campaign is not only important, I think it's crucial. And it's crucial to raise awareness. And we as parents, we have a very important role to play because, we transmit, we pass on values to our children, we pass on education, but at the end, this is useless if the planet doesn't keep up. So this is why this is such an important question today. And this is also why we put so much work, passion, and dedication to make sure that, this project would be perfect, but also because it is extremely, extremely serious. Thank you.
Well, congratulations again to Noam and his mother, Céline. And of course to the UNDP on the launch of Weather Kids. Now, our next guest is someone who really knows about the weather and the news. Please welcome veteran Swiss forecaster and presenter, Philippe Jeanneret.
Bonjour.
Now, Philippe is in charge of the weather section at Radio Télévision Suisse, as you'll probably know. Now, besides broadcasting, he also writes a weekly column on the RTS website and magazine articles on the weather and climate. Bienvenue, Philippe. Now, I'm going to ask Philippe a couple of questions. Firstly, in English and then in French. So, from your career over the years, I have two questions. The first one is, how are you seeing the climate in Switzerland changing? Comment voyez-vous le changement des conditions climatiques en Suisse?
Il y a différentes manières de montrer comment le climat a changé en Suisse depuis 30 ou 40 ans. Je pourrais vous parler du retrait des glaciers. Je pourrais vous dire aussi la température moyenne en Suisse est montée de 0,4 degrés tous les 10 ans depuis 1960. Mais c'est le nombre de journées tropicales sur l'année, par exemple pour Genève. J'ai commencé à travailler. La norme climatique en vigueur, qui était donc développée par Météo Suisse, c'était la norme. Selon cette norme, à Genève, il y avait en moyenne 10,2 journées tropicales par an. Eh bien, aujourd'hui, selon la norme climatique, qui est donc la norme 1991-2020, nous sommes passés à 17,6, ce qui représente une augmentation de 72-73%. C'est énorme, c'est un chiffre qui est extrêmement parlant. Et si on attend la prochaine norme climatique, eh bien on verra que ce nombre va être multiplié par 2 parce que nous allons probablement dépasser les 20 journées à 30 degrés par an à Genève. Je pense vraiment que ces chiffres racontent quelque chose.
Well, it is shocking to see these changes so dramatically in a place like Switzerland, but being in the public eye as a broadcaster and writer, what role does the weather presenter play in raising awareness about the climate crisis? Quel est le rôle du présentateur météo dans la sensibilisation à la crise climatique?
La sensibilisation à la crise climatique, c'est pas facile à dire. Un présentateur météo n'est pas là pour rassurer, ce n'est pas son rôle. Il n'est pas là pour faire du sensationnel ou bien pour faire peur. Un présentateur météo est là pour informer, c'est très important. Le travail d'information, ce n'est pas seulement lire des dépêches et les communiquer aux téléspectateurs. C'est connaître le sujet, c'est l'avoir étudié, c'est chercher régulièrement des informations, développer ses connaissances en lisant par exemple des études. Il faut aussi avoir un réseau d'interlocuteurs, des gens qui soient qualifiés, qui soient reconnus, qui soient des sources valables. Et à partir de ce moment-là, on dispose d'une bonne information. Ça, c'est la première chose. La deuxième, qui est très importante également, c'est d'avoir cette volonté, cette capacité de vulgariser. Il faut faire cet effort pour rendre l'information accessible. Lorsqu'un présentateur parle de climat, il ne doit pas montrer ce qu'il sait. Il doit se faire comprendre et faire en sorte que les gens, à la fin de l'exposé, disent « Merci, on a compris ». Et c'est ça le rôle du présentateur. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Philippe. That was Radio-Télévision Suisse, Philippe Jeanneret. And our next guest is also no stranger to action or extreme weather. You may know this Danish actor from his role as Jaime Lannister in the Game of Thrones. But Nikolai Coster-Waldau is also a passionate and well-travelled advocate for climate action as a goodwill ambassador for the UNDP. And unfortunately, he's not here today, but in this video with the UNDP Climate Promise Programme, Nikolai shares his thoughts on why climate action is so vital to a sustainable future for developing countries.
Energy is indispensable to our lives. We need energy to move around, produce our food, power our homes, businesses, just about everything else. To tackle the climate crisis, we have to transition our entire energy system from fossil fuels to renewable energy and increase energy efficiency. This also means making more sustainable choices in our daily lives by reducing our own carbon footprints, as well as supporting policies that promote sustainable energy in all areas of life. This is a monumental task, but it is possible. Solar and wind energy are now the cheapest forms of energy available, and they can help us cut costs while drastically reducing emissions. They can also enable us to extend energy access to remote communities, power livelihoods, improve education, and even save lives through critical services like healthcare. In this episode of Climate Action Explained, we're inviting you on a trip around the world, from Uruguay to Bosnia and Herzegovina to Zimbabwe. Come and see how different countries are working on climate solutions in the energy sector.
As a district hospital, 24/7, we have to be able to operate on a pregnant woman who needs cesarean sections. We have to be able to deliver all the complicated cases in a well-lit environment. All of this need electricity.
So across the country, we've got more than 1,000 facilities that have benefited from the Solar for Health. We are aiming at improving the health services that are given at the facilities in the country. In addition to that, looking at mitigating the things that affect our climate, getting energy from solar, which is a clean source of energy, help us reduce emissions, and we get a more affordable energy source.
All those vaccines, those medications, they need a stable temperature of +2 to +8 degrees Celsius, which can only be assured by the refrigerators running on electricity 24/7. So I can certainly say that it has been a game changer. And in terms of evidence, we now have fewer maternal mortality cases.
Solar yakatipa advantage yakawanda pakuti haina kufanana nemagetsi anoti anomboenda zvikatora 2 days zvakadaro zvinoreva kuti mafiriji edu cold chaining yakaafectiwa, but nesolar manje hatichina matambudziko akadaro.
Matambudziko aivako ndekuti kana ndauya kuzobatsirwa kulabor uku pamwe kusina magetsi togona kunzi tengai makendo muye nawo kuti ugowana kubatsirwa zvakanaka. Pamwe unenge uchida kuitwa sisa zvobva zvado kukanganisa, pamwe utakurwa woendwa newe kune chimwe chipatara apa uchingorwadziwa.
Kurapiwa kwose nyangwe mushonga ukauya pano usiku unorapiwa. Nyangwe ndiko kuti operation usiku unorapiwa. Matambudziko atakanga tinawo hatisisina kubva zvakauya magetsi.
Right, so let's go over to the purple chairs next. And to learn more about the Weather Kids, we're having Lauren Stewart and Boaz Poldy joining us right now. Now, Lauren is a scientific officer at WMO and an expert in sustainable development and climate policy. And her passion for meteorology started at 4, she told me. Boaz is Chief Creative Officer at the UNDP, a former TV journalist, and our guide for a behind-the-scenes look at this important campaign for climate action. Thank you.
So Boaz, I am so excited to have you here today. I have a few questions for you. You're the mastermind behind this whole campaign. And when I found out about the Weather Kids campaign, I was so excited because I was a weather kid. I decided I wanted to be a meteorologist at 4 years old, and I did my first ever weather forecast at the age of 6 on my elementary school news. And that day, it was a Tuesday in January in the year 2000, and I still have the video today of this forecast. It was cloudy with a high of 30 Fahrenheit, which is like -1 Celsius, I think. And I turned that into a career. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I started at...
Sorry.
I'm not loud enough?
knocking her out. Just put your microphone a little closer so we can hear you a bit better.
Can you hear me now? Yes. I feel like, okay, that's really close to my mouth. Okay. So anyways, I turned my passion for meteorology into an actual career. And I am a meteorologist now, and I work here at the World Meteorological Organization. But I realized along the way, from that first weather forecast at 6 years old to where I am now, that there's a lot more to the story beyond just the science, right? And I think the real story here is how the weather and the climate actually touch the lives of people every single day. And that can be challenging to communicate, but I think storytelling is a really powerful tool to help us do that. So can you tell us a little bit about how you think a good story can help to inspire climate action?
So I think a good story is the most important part of this. Building a narrative that's a relatable narrative, that's a narrative that can resonate with people, is the way for us to engage with people. We don't want to be talking to ourselves, as frankly the UN sometimes does. So what we want to do is try and reach out to people, to everyone out there with a message that can resonate, that has some kind of ability to cut through. There's an enormous amount of media out there. There's an enormous amount, I'm being told to put it close to my mouth as well, so you're not alone. There's an enormous amount of media, but we need something that cuts through. And so what we try to do is tell stories that resonate, that really kind of will somehow resonate with people. In the case of Weather Kids, the idea is that somehow we're all connected to children. I'm a parent. I have two small boys. One is 6 and one is 11, and they're the center of my life. So for me, kind of like a campaign like this about the next generation resonates with me personally because of my children. But I believe that all of humanity resonates because of the next generation. There is no way that any one of us doesn't care what happens in the next generation. And that's the cut through there. That's how we want to reach people, with the idea that this is a generational issue. We need to take care of this planet, not only for my children, but for their children, for everyone's children, and for all future generations.
I think that's a really good point, that we need to resonate with people and really connect with them. And I think everyone can agree that this is a reality that we need to address. I mean, every time we turn on the news these days, there's yet another story about an extreme weather events, about the impacts of climate change and how it's disproportionately impacting some of the world's most vulnerable people. And that's a reality that we can't ignore. And I think we can all resonate with that to an extent. But how can we better communicate not only the need to address this challenge, but also the fact that we can address it?
So the Weather Kids campaign, you've now seen the film, you've seen Noam's incredible performance in French. It's a campaign about hope. It's not a campaign about doom and gloom. There is a problem. There's a big problem out there. There's a problem that's called, the climate emergency or the climate crisis that we created. We didn't do it on purpose. No one was sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm going to destroy the world and I want to create this horrible thing." There's an evil person out there. It just, we took a wrong turn, and now we have to correct course. But the good thing is, just like all of our panelists have said, we can do it. The technology exists, the know-how exists. Humans are the most resilient, most incredible species on the planet. And together, if we all work together, we'll be able to sort this out. And that's the message of this campaign. But it goes much beyond that. We need to reach people. We need to reach them where they are. We can't be, we need to understand that there is a mass humanity out there. So what we've done with the Weather Kids is that we've been able, through WMO and all of our partners, the Weather Channel, the Weather Company, and many other partners, we've been able to reach an enormous amount of people around the world. I believe that as of this morning, we're activating in over 80 countries, and we have a small compilation to share with you of what's been going on in the world already today.
Wonderful. Well, many thanks to Lauren and Boaz.
We're not done.
Oh.
Thank you, Sarah.
هذه الحرب ستؤثر على البعد 90% من الأطفال، وسيكون اللعب في الهواء الطلق حلما مستحيلا.
ทั้งหมดนี้สาเหตุเกิดมาจากเจ้าผ้าห่มความร้อนของมลพิษทั้งหลายปกคลุมชั้นบรรยากาศโลกของเราสิ่งที่เราต้องทำต่อไปนี้ก็คือเอามันออกไปอย่าให้มันอยู่ตรงนั้นค่ะ
ariko nimwihebe haracyari amahirwe yo kugira ikirere cyiza. Imikoreshereze y'ingufu zidahumanya iri gukwira hose.
Bei ya nishati ya jua imeshuka kwa kiwango cha chini zaidi ya mafuta na gesi. Tukiangalia picha ya satellite inaonyesha kabisa kuwa
Diz assim que ton nuclear só me fortan ese til preinar.
Reciclar, reutilizar, ahorrar energía son 3 acciones que pueden hacer una gran diferencia.
Ci saranno forti venti politici, ma non saranno nulla in confronto alla potenza del ciclone Elsa, mia madre.
Because it's not just a weather report to us, it's our future.
So, thank you. through incredible tireless work of a very, very small team at UNDP. Marianne is here somewhere. Just absolutely incredible work of getting all of this together, all of these activations going. Sonia sitting right here, who's done, point-to-point translations on this across the globe. A huge team in New York working behind us, media teams, everyone. That's how you do it. You bring it to the people. You bring it to where they are in the languages that they are speaking.
So I have one last question for you. Like I said earlier, I'm so excited about this campaign for a lot of reasons, but one reason in particular is because we're really utilizing the power of kids to influence the adults and their lives, to convince them to take action to address climate change. But we've seen a lot of climate campaigns over the years, and you are an expert in this. You also led the Frankie the Dinosaur campaign. If you don't know what that is, please Google it because it is fantastic. But how is this campaign going to be different, and how is it going to inspire more action?
We've seen studies from around the world that show us that the best way for us to try and get people to take climate action is to remind them of their children, remind them of the next generation, remind them that this is the generational issue. We're not, I certainly am not going to suffer the worst consequences of climate. You might, you're a little bit younger, so you might suffer a little bit more than me. But so it's not about me. It's about the next generation. It's about the fact that we need to leave a better world to our children, to our children's children, and to all future generations. And that's what's going to resonate here. That's why this campaign works. That's why we're going to reach people, and we're going to be able, I think, to move the needle on climate action. Because what is there one person in this room that doesn't believe that they want to leave a better world for their children? I don't think that person exists, and I don't think they exist anywhere. We're all fighting for the same cause, and together we can do it. We can do it. We can achieve this. It's not a dream. We can reach 1.5 degrees. We can reach the Paris Agreement as it was envisioned, and we can solve this crisis.
Great. Well, many thanks to Lauren and Boaz for that great look at the Weather Kids campaign. And please do your part by checking out the Weather Kids website and webcast and making your pledge for climate action. Well, next we have two people who are also prominent actors in solving the challenges of climate change, Ingmar Rentzhog and Rajan Singh. First, by video, we'll hear from Ingmar, who is the founder and CEO of We Don't Have Time, which is the world's largest review platform for climate solutions.
Hello everyone, I'm Ingmar Rentzhog, the founder and CEO of We Don't Have Time, the world's largest media platform for climate action. We are a proud partner to UNDP and the Weather Kids campaign. And I'm here to talk about an important call to action that you can do to contribute creating that future that will be better for us all. I'm here to talk about money. We need a lot of money in the green transition. In fact, the World Economic Forum says that we need $4.5 trillion invested yearly in the green solutions to succeed with the Paris Agreement and the 1.5 target before 2030. We're not there yet. We have some money that we invest in the solutions, but it's not enough. The good news, however, is that we have all that money. It's just that we have invested them in the fossil fuel companies instead. One where we have a lot of money, in fact, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, $7 trillion that our governments are spending on fossil fuel subsidies. What do you think about that, Frankie? It's insanity, right? Let's change that. So how are we going to change that? By moving it. It's a simple solution. We just move it from the fossil to the solutions. Vote for the politicians that are willing to move the fossil fuel subsidies to the green solutions. In USA, they have actually done this. They have moved $1 trillion to the green transition by the Inflation Act. So we need more politicians stepping up, and you can advocate for it and you can vote for it So what do you think now, Frankie? This is better. Yeah, I totally agree, and we can do this. So here is more money than those $4.5 trillion that we acute need, but more the better. We can really speed up the transition. But it's not just the subsidies, right? It's also money from our pension funds, our money. When we do pension savings, here in Sweden, our largest pension fund, where 6 million Swedish citizens are saving their money. They are the largest, one of the largest investors in Saudi Aramco oil, for instance. Let's change that. Let's also move the pension capital from banks and institutions. Let's move it to the solutions. $3 trillion it was last year. We have tons of money. What we need to do is move it from here to there. And we Don't Have Time, we have created a tool for this. So if you go to wedon'thavetime.org/move the money, you can sign up on our tool, and it guides you on how you can do this with your money. It's not complicated. We will help you all the way. And you can also read about all the solutions that needs the money invested in. We can do this. You can do this. Let's move the money. Right. Thank you.
And now we're joined here in Geneva by Rajan Singh. Now, Rajan is the CEO of EarthX, a non-profit organisation building partnerships and platforms that amplify education and action for a more sustainable future. And you have the floor, Rajan.
Thank you so much. I know I'm aware that this is going to be trying to wake you up on an afternoon. It's nearly 4 o'clock, so I'll do my very best to be short, simple, and keep you awake. So hopefully I better tell you a bit about EarthX, because some of you may have not heard about it. We started 13 years ago in Dallas, Texas, as the Earth Day Street Festival with a simple mission. It was really to ignite the enthusiasm around Earth Day as a way of drawing more people in a critical mission of fighting for the future sustainability of our planet. Since then, EarthX has expanded into one of the biggest environmental gatherings in the world. This growth includes what we've just launched is EarthX TV. It's the first environmental television network with the latest example of our commitment to the ways to invite more people, and particularly people who don't necessarily think of themselves as environmentalists, into a shared mission of protecting one planet that we call, I think it's in my pocket, Earth. So that, in a way, is what we want to do, is to look after this wonderful planet. This is why we're so proud to partner with the United Nations Development Programme and BOAS and his team, as well as the WMO. In 2021, after the release of the Don't Choose Extinction campaign, you saw Frankie the Dino. We were helping instrumental in Frankie now becoming very famous, particularly in the United Nations Assembly, where he addressed the whole United Nations. These Frankie appearances drove 9.5 billion digital impressions. And people say impressions is a load of crap. It's not impressions we really want to hear. It's about how many people watched that video. And I can tell you it was 2.2 billion in up to 2023. We've stopped counting now because our meters are kind of running out. And also over 4,000 media mentions in most of the medias around 96 countries around the world. So in a way, it was a wonderful example how, in the spirit of SDG 17, forming partnerships for the goals, EarthX, WMO and the UNDP working together to amplify important messages about climate action, particularly the next generation who are going to be the leaders of the future, and they're the people that we need to get the message across to. And that's why we're excited to continue our collaboration with the UNDP as Don't Choose Extinction evolves into its next phase, Weather Kids. EarthX is passionate about finding innovative ways to communicate and build support around this critical environmental issues, and that Weather Kids campaign is exactly what, a creative way to drive home an important scientific message. The need to retain commitment to keep the global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius with engaging, relatable messages. That's the important message that we need to give, is we need to make it an important issue, particularly towards our young people. We're excited to see the campaign garner the same attention and the impact that Frankie the Dino had brought. And the one last thing I will say to you is that we would like to invite you all to join us in Dallas, Texas. We have a huge conference. It's called the Congress of Conferences. It's from the 22nd to the 26th of April. It is in Dallas, and we'd love you to join us. The Weather Kids will be there. The Frankie the Dino will be there as part of our annual conference. So EarthX 24, the actual conference, this is my little bit of sales thing, will bring together hundreds of experts from science, industry, technology, business, politics, investment, innovation, and to inspire people and organizations to move towards a sustainable future. We hope you can join us, and we look forward to meeting you. And thank you very much to the WMO and UNDP for giving us the opportunity to just say a few words. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajan. Now, climate action is essential for sustainable development and for our future. And the Paris Agreement of 2015 laid the ground to take that action. Keeping the rise in temperatures below 1.5 degrees is seen as a crucial part of limiting the impact of climate change. Can we still hit that target? Well, to look at that and more, we're joined now by our high-level panel today. Moderating the discussion is Marie-Claire Graff. She's the co-founder of the Youth Negotiators Academy, and Marie-Claire has also co-founded initiatives to mobilize young people as an advocate for climate action and sustainable development. Celeste Saulo joins us again, a former director of Argentina's Meteorological Service. She's the first woman and the first South American to be Secretary General of the WMO. And also rejoining us is Aggie Veras. Building partnerships is obviously a big part of her leadership role in connecting the UNDP's global initiatives with the community of multilateral Geneva. And lastly, but not least, we have Ambassador Matthew Wilson, who is the permanent representative of Barbados to the UN office in Geneva with 20 years of experience in trade and development. And last but certainly not least is Rosa San Giorgio. She's an advocate for responsible investing and now leads the Environmental, Social and Governance Program at Pictet Wealth Management. Welcome, everyone, and over to you, Marie-Claire.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, the panel, the title is Keeping 1.5 Alive. There are definitely many different approaches we can take. Here at WMO, we could take a scientific perspective. Amongst distinguished colleagues from the political scene, we can take a political perspective, how we keep 1.5 alive. And the panel very much want to bring all of this together to pave the path forward. Yet also, we look into this intergenerational bit when we have the campaign on the Weather Kids. So I wanted us to just quickly reflect on a study which was thousands of young people around the planet were asked what they think about the future. And it's not a stunning number to me, but maybe to you, that 75% of young people have been saying that they are frightened about the future. This obviously depends a little bit where around the planet you ask, and if you go to the Philippines, 95% of this young generation we want to engage is frightened about the future. As I'm sitting here with many diplomats, negotiators, and people working in intergovernmental politics, also young people have been saying that they are feeling betrayed by the government. And again, unfortunately, a very high number. Around 60% of young people do not trust governments that they actually bring the climate actions we need. And that's why 40% of them actually considering of not having kids. Well, if we want to sustain the Weather Kids, we need to change something. And we need to do this together. And that's why also I would like to reflect when we're having this panel about the urgency on how we are moving from these talks to the commitments and to the actions on ground, which is actually what is giving hope to the young people. No longer that we have agreements over agreements which do not result in the actions we need. But also we need the scale, as already been mentioning in the beginning, but the scale needs to be grounded in the local realities of these young people, of the stewards of the land, who actually ultimately drive the solutions. And also the narrative, because we can no longer talk about hope without bringing the actions, the tangible actions, to the ground for the children and the future generations. And that's why it's so important that young people are not only heard, but actually taken serious. And quite often, we hear young people, we thank them for their contributions, but are we actually taking them serious when we are taking decisions, when we are drafting these policies, which should keep 1.5 alive? I'm a climate justice activist. My voice has definitely been heard, maybe not always welcomed in front of the parliament. Yet, I don't always know if actually my voice was really being taken serious. Yet, back in 2019, I have been the first ever and the youngest negotiator for the government of Switzerland at the 25th Climate Conference. And this was actually when I, for the first time, got a seat at the decision-making tables. Why I'm saying this? Because this was a role where I could meaningfully and effectively engage in how policies are designed. But very quickly I realized it's not going to be me who is changing these policies. We need a bigger approach. We need to create a movement of young people who are engaged in these policies for the future. And that's why I co-founded the Youth Negotiators Academy, exactly for the reason that we need to engage these young people who currently lost the trust in government and multilateral processes, and actually ultimately are really struggling to see a future which is bright. And that's what we need. That's why we are equipping young people for the negotiations, who then actually engage in these negotiations, to have more intergenerational leadership, to have young people who are really engaged in these negotiations, but also really reinstall the trust in these multilateral processes for ultimately negotiated outcomes which keep 1.5 alive, our future, because this is not negotiated. And with this, I would really like to welcome our panelists on stage, and I would turn first to you, because climate science and also the meteorological services are absolutely crucial for shifting this needle when it comes to climate action. Yet, we all know, and also as the science from this house tells us, we are far off track. We're not even getting close where we have to be. So are we just shouting to the desert, or what do you actually see, especially when we talk about the hope for future generations and the kids of today? So what can we potentially do different? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Marie-Claire. And I think that after listening to you, I'm certain that we are not shouting in the desert, because you exist. Thank you so much. Still, we need further engagement with the younger generation, and including their voice is strategic to enable them to generate awareness of the risks of the future. We can see in social media, for example, that the information that we provide generates strong impact. But there is a missing link between that impact, the likes, and the internet and the action. So what can they do with this information? How we must be innovative in the ways we really touch their heart and motivate them. So I would like to bring here an example that I liked particularly, and it is a campaign run by the USA. It's a volunteer-based community science field campaign in 60 cities in the USA, Santiago de Chile, Rio de Janeiro, and Freetown in Sierra Leone. It is named Youth Engagement in Cities Science Urban Heat Mapping Campaigns. What does it mean? Well, these campaigns engage residents in a scientific study to map and understand how heat is distributed in their communities, and as a result, produces high-quality maps and reports that have been used. They have been used and they were not discarded in city sustainable plan, public health practices, urban forestry, research projects, and other engagement activities. So youth are often key actors in these mapping campaigns, measuring temperatures in the community, and this helps them to not only learn about risk and heat risk, but also participate in how the scientific knowledge is created. So yes, putting them in contact with the field and taking their action on board in our decisions is key.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing us a little bit of hope over here when it comes to the science and to the meteorological services at large. Let me turn to you, because UNDP is working all over the world to actually bring hope through policies, and you're assisting countries, especially developing countries from all around the world, in updating and enhancing their NDCs, the National Determined Contribution. These are the action plans the countries hand in to achieve the Paris Agreement's goals and ultimately the 1.5 goal. So from your kind of multilateral perspective, where do you see hope when you're working with these countries, and where do we stand currently?
I actually think there are many reasons for optimism if we look around what these policies are already doing. Advancement in renewable energy policies, other policy commitments at the national levels, technological innovations, and the public awareness and activism that certainly helps. So we do have not just a hope, but a good track record of where we can go. So we need to look at these possibilities for transformation, and we need to look at it despite the magnitude of the challenge that we see. So the question is time. We don't have the luxury of time. So this window of opportunity to act is very, very rapidly closing. It's really the next 2 years that perhaps stand the best chance to turn things around, and as a global community that we can ensure that the global warming stays under the 1.5 degrees. There are many reasons for this, but we do have the momentum of working towards the COP in Brazil, and then of course the COP in between. And we as UNDP have been working with many developing countries on their nationally determined contributions, and we already see an enormous change. They work. What are these NDCs? They are essentially policies that make commitment that will bring the greenhouse gas emissions lower and essentially contribute to lowering the global warming or addressing the global warming. And what we see is that almost all of them already include an enhanced ambition on adaptation, enhanced ambition on mitigation, and they almost all include gender and youth considerations. So what we are working on is to make these policies really work for the climate. Individual action is very important, and that's what our campaign is about. But it has to go hand in hand with policy changes. So what stands in the way of these policy changes? We also need to look at the underlying incentives. And I'm sure some of our panel members will also talk about it. We know the short-term views of politicians. We also know the incentives underlying moving the money aspect that we saw in the video. So we need to look how we can support the developing countries, especially who are most vulnerable to climate change, to ensure that they actually implement their policies. They have the means and the ability to implement these policies, because at the end of the day, that's where we're going to see the tide turn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all the support you're working with the countries. So let's turn to one of these countries, Ambassador Wilson from Barbados. Your country and many of the small island nations around the world and the low-lying countries are amongst the hardest hit by the climate crisis. Yet, you're also working on a lot of solutions and really championing this cause, not only in Barbados, but actually globally. So what are some of these solutions, and how can we scale them from your perspective? And also, how can we really trigger this kind of global movement around these actions?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having a small island developing state here. It doesn't happen often enough. So I'm going to do what most politicians do. I'm going to ignore the question first and say what I want to say, and then I'll get back to the question. So our animals are dying. Will we ever see tigers again? Corals are bleached, and fish don't have homes. The world is on our shoulders. Please don't ruin it. Planet Earth is dying and breaking. What are we waiting for? Save us. Save our beautiful planet. Be Earth heroes. Now, these are excerpts from a poem entitled Save Our Planet, Save Us, written by my 9-year-old niece, Reese Renwick, that was published in a young writer's collection called The Big Green Poetry Machine last year. She's 9 years old, and she's stressed about plastic pollution, about polar caps melting, and about coral bleaching. The climate crisis is turning many of our young people into warriors, but it's also forcing them to accumulate Far too many battle scars too early. But back to your question. You're correct. SIDS are at the front lines of the crisis. All vulnerable communities are on the front lines, and we have the evidence. Hurricanes hit Grenada and Dominica, two Caribbean small island developing states, resulting in damages in excess of 200% of each country's respective gross domestic product. A similar event occurred in Barbuda in 2017, and it led to the country being completely uninhabitable. Increased warming exacerbates the exposure of SIDS to saltwater intrusion, to flooding, to damage to infrastructure, threatens our food, nutrition, and livelihood security. And for many SIDS that are dependent on tourism as their main export generator, it stymies our economic growth and our sustainable development. And when I go back to my beautiful country of Barbados, I can see the change every single year. It's getting hotter. That affects productivity, that affects livestock. You're seeing coral bleaching, you're seeing beach erosion. So every day I'm seeing the reality of what climate change is doing in my small island developing state. So the theme of this year's World Meteorological Day at the front line of climate action it resonates so much with us. So what are some of the solutions? One, effective and multifaceted financing. And I know we'll hear a bit more of that from Rosa. We need this from the public sector, we need this from the private sector, we need this from the markets, and we need this from philanthropy. No one source is enough to even scratch the surface. We speak about breaking down silos in the UN family, but we need to break down silos in the financing ecosystem. Two, Barbados and many other small island developing states have championed access to financing through the Bridgetown Initiative. If you haven't heard of the Bridgetown Initiative, look it up. It's a program which has been developed by my Prime Minister, Mia Mottley. And what it calls for is for the fulfillment of commitments to capitalize the Loss and Damage Fund, which you know was launched at COP. The inclusion of natural disaster clauses in new financial instruments, which will immediately suspend all of the country's debt payments and allow countries to focus on response and recovery if there is a disaster. And Barbados was the first country to negotiate these types of novel provisions in a financial instrument. And such clauses are now being considered in FDI and IFIs as they develop similar instruments. Small island states and coastal states like Belize and in the Pacific are again exploring debt for nature swaps. And Barbados is in the process of setting up a green-blue bank, which, when it is capitalized with investments from a number of funding sources, will aim to help finance green investments in affordable homes, in hurricane-resistant roofs, the electrification of public and private transportation, and for me, this is a very replicable and scalable model to consider. Third, embracing elements of a circular economy that can drive momentum and bring the society on board. Take plastics, for example, plastics pollution, a huge issue that we're dealing with. And Barbados is one of the coordinators of the plastics pollution discussion happening just across the road at the World Trade Organization. We banned single-use plastics a few years ago, and we're continuing to explore using natural materials found in our country as plastic substitutes. So seaweed, for example, or waste products from sugarcane and from coconut harvesting. Now, this is not new, but the urgency to find and invest in this sector has to be accelerated. And it cannot be about replicating old patterns of exporting raw material to be processed elsewhere and then re-imported. Small islands like Barbados need the investment and the fiscal and incentive space to create these new sustainability industries. And four, and finally, because I have 5 minutes, Barbados is among 30 countries selected for support under the Early Warnings for All initiative, which is co-led by the WMO. Last year, we hosted the first regional launch of the UN Early Warnings for All initiative, and this aims to ensure that every person on Earth is protected from water, weather, or climate events through life-saving early warning systems. The initiative is not just about forecasting, it's about raising awareness about the risks and the impacts based on the data provided by forecasting. It's about enhanced data exchange and stakeholder engagement. So that is yet another initiative which I think can be scaled and replicated with the help of the UN family. Thank you.
Well, thank you for answering my question, actually bridging so well to our next speaker from the banking sector who can address some of these questions. So around the world, we urgently need the finances and the investments for this net zero economy, as you just alluded to, but also to adapt to the realities of climate change. So where do you see, and currently there's a huge gap, right, when we look into the flow of the financing. So where do you see solutions, how we can bridge this gap? And coming from the finance sector, also bringing some of these very concrete examples on where we're seeing already going in the right direction.
So the financial industry is a bridge between people with money and people with idea. That's the idea behind the financial industry when it was created. And we have the money. We have heard, we've never been so wealthy. 10 trillion was the global GDP in the 90s. We are 100 trillion, so we have a lot of money. We have the ideas. You were mentioning some of those ideas, but we have AI supporting us also. We can know with drones where there is desertification. So there are a lot of ideas. And where is the bridge of the financial institutions? So financial institutions are a catalyst for the economy. They have been a catalyst for real economy. You may remember or not remember that financial institutions were there to create the train system in Switzerland, for example, so they have been there. Now, why is not happening as much as we would like? I'm bringing an elephant in the room. We already had a dinosaur, so I think it's okay. Because in some cases, it's not economically convenient. Financial institutions have a fiduciary duty towards their clients to invest their money in a way that actually preserve the wealth. And in some shape or form, we have created a system which not necessarily those companies that create the solutions are the best investments for our clients, which is actually a little bit strange. Don't you find it a bit strange that in a year where we hit record temperatures, we also have another record, which is the profit of the oil and gas companies? How can this happen? How can this rationally happen? It's not rational. Human beings are not rational. One point that I think is important is to remember why. Why are those oil and gas companies making so much money? Because actually we are not accounting very well for their costs, because we are not including all the externalities that they are creating in their costs. So one big solution is let's calculate those externalities and let's those companies that are actually emitting greenhouse gas emission pay for them. This has already been invented, it's not new, is carbon pricing. Carbon pricing is not working actually very well. It's not global. There is a carbon pricing, very different carbon pricing. There are voluntary market, there are a mandatory market, but this is actually one of the solutions. Calculating those externalities and let people that actually are emitting greenhouse gas emission pay. If those companies will have to pay, their balance sheet will look very different. Their costs will be higher, their profitability will be lower, so a lot of investors and financial institutions would probably prefer to invest in renewable energies than in oil and gas. So it's extremely important. The externalities are one fantastic tool. We heard about the 7 trillion of subsidies to oil and gas. Those 7 trillion are part direct and part indirect. That transfer, that cost of the externalities will be allowing for a change of hand on those trillions. Those are not the only subsidies that are going against actually our work on climate. There are a lot of subsidies in the agriculture, for example. There's a lot of subsidies going in agriculture for pesticides. Why not moving those subsidies, for example, to regenerative agriculture that can actually absorb more carbon?
Thank you so much. And we're not only running out of time on the panel here, but also really running out of time for action and for hope. So thank you so much for joining us today here, but also thank you so much for being here with us today, and really take this as a call for action to all step up, to bring this urgency, this scale, but also this collaboration between all generations into our work, so we can have actually a future altogether. It is handing over to our moderator.
Thank you so much, Marie-Claire. Next, we have another video. It's Randy Stipes from the Weather Channel, who's going to tell us more about the importance of this campaign.
Hi, everyone. My name is Randy Stipes. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for the Weather Company. You're probably most familiar with our consumer business and our flagship consumer brand, the Weather Channel. Needless to say, we obsess about the weather. And we're on the leading edge of the science surrounding the changing climate and how it is impacting people each and every day. It's clear that people are feeling the changing climate through the weather they experience. I'm sure that you feel it too. Globally, severe weather is happening outside of traditional seasonal norms and impacting more places and people than ever before. We've seen devastating heat waves, wildfires, and flooding across the globe. For example, did you know that last year was the Earth's hottest year ever on record? In fact, July was the planet's single hottest month on record. Canada didn't escape record-breaking heat either, which set the table for wildfires that quickly scorched more land than any previous year on record in the country. Now, the latest IPCC report expects that we'll only face an increase in the intensity of extreme weather in the years to come. So, as weather is becoming increasingly erratic and impactful, access to reliable weather information is more important than ever. And that is why we couldn't have been prouder to say yes when the United Nations Development Program asked us to partner on its Weather Kids Climate Action Campaign. We eagerly lent our voice, our expertise, and our studio to this important initiative, working with kids to help us spread a climate action message and ultimately forecast a brighter future for the year 2050. That's because we are committed to helping people live well, whether that's to help you plan your day today, to keep you and your family safe in the face of impending weather tomorrow, or to help leave our Earth in a better place for the next generation. That's why it's our mission to propel the world, and that starts with protecting it. We're committed to science, and the science is clear here, as I mentioned. We're committed to accuracy and democratizing the weather forecast so that every single person on the planet has free and easy access to reliable, timely weather information. And we're committed to delivering that weather data in an environmentally conscious way. As one of the largest and most dynamic data sets in the world, processing weather data, well, that takes a lot of computing power. We are embracing advanced technology like AI and other computing advancements, not only to improve the accuracy of our forecasts, but to do so while using much less computational resources over time, thus helping our environment. Now, we have developed a loyal following of more than 360 million people across the globe, more than 360 million people who come to us monthly and trust us for weather information across our digital properties. We feel a deep responsibility to share this message from the Weather Kids campaign with our audience. So, thank you. Thank you to the UNDP team. Thank you for not admiring the problem. We applaud you for continuing not only to drive awareness, but also for driving action. This Weather Kids campaign is the latest in a series of examples where you have done just that.
Well, it's been a really action-packed day, hasn't it? But let's take a little bit of time now to reflect on today's event and the climate action that we all need to take. So please welcome back Celeste Saulo from the WMO.
Well, first of all, thank you all very much for this afternoon with all these reflections and all the testimonies that we got and the ideas that we have as takeaways, I would say. I really appreciate not only UNDP Weather Kids campaign, I also appreciate the presence of different permanent missions here in Geneva, because it speaks about your interest on helping us to bring climate action to the top of your agenda. Thank you very much for explaining us also the role of climate finance and finance in general, and how we can be very active in terms of driving this new climate finance scenario in a more productive way, I would say. Thank you, Ambassador, for your testimony and for the nice poem that you share with us about written by your niece, only 9 years old, and she is already worried about her future. So I would say that I would like to close with hope. That is the whole idea of our campaign. Kids mean hope, mean love also. And I think that our actions should be driven by love. That is the only way to create a better planet. Thank you so much for being here. Happy World Meteorological Day.
Well, we're nearly at the end of our celebrations here today for World Meteorological Day and the launch of Weather Kids. Thank you to our hosts at the WMO and the global network of partners. Thank you to our speakers and especially our young forecasters who really were the star of the show. And thank you to our guests here in Geneva and to everyone tuning in online And now, as we all pledge to do our part, we leave you with one final video looking at how early warning systems about disasters and severe weather can help save lives. Thank you very much.
Early warning systems are becoming more and more actually a fundamental human right.
Every person on Earth must be protected by an early warning system by 2027 by putting in place the action plan we launched last year.
Early warning systems really provide an indication before a hazard, and it enables people to act in advance of the hazard and really protect themselves. But only half of WMO's members have indicated that they have a fully functioning multi-hazard early warning system. WMO, in essence, has existed for 150 years for the sole purpose of exchanging weather and climate data. And this data is actually what underpins all of the forecasting capabilities that enable any one country to issue a forecast. So we're really working, especially with the least developed countries and developing countries, to enhance their capabilities to access the most recent and up-to-date information and tailor this to their local needs. We're enhancing our forecasting capabilities through a number of different avenues. So we are looking at more investments within observations and forecasting. We're also looking at how we integrate new technologies such as artificial intelligence to really enhance the quality of the forecast. You can have a really tremendous forecast and early warning, but if it doesn't reach people or they're not able to act on it, then it's really not meeting the target of having everyone protected by early warning systems. And this is where some of our partnerships with other UN agencies and humanitarian agencies is absolutely critical. Really working with the people that they have on the ground, working within the communities to enable some of these life-saving early warnings to reach them, and so that they have access, but not only that, that they understand and have the capability to act should they receive a warning.
Our role as scientists and advocates for the planet has never been more crucial. The lives of future generations are in our hands. Our efforts today will ensure a safer, healthier world for future generations.
Well, that's it from us today, and I'll just close by saying Happy World Meteorological Day.